right, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to first thank everyone for joining in to this Cosmo Campfire. Today, we will be covering the various ways to set up your project billing and generate your invoices within Mission Control. So a pretty long session. However, this session will be recorded and posted to our website. So if you need to go back and review it, then you'll have a link that you'll be able to see this session again. My name is Lexi. I am a customer success rep with Aprika, and I've been with Aprika a little over 2 years now, and in the Salesforce ecosystem for a little over 3 years now. On the agenda today, we're going to dive into the various methods to create billing events and generate your invoices. And if you have any questions during the demo, please enter them in the chat. So because this is a longer session, I won't be answering questions during the demonstration, but after the demonstration, I will be reviewing any questions relating to this topic or any outstanding questions that you might have relating to other topics for Mission Control. All right, the objectives today will be to generate invoices using the various methods. So manually, according to your business requirements, you can just go in and create your own fixed price or time and material billing events. You can also automatically generate your invoices upon completion of milestones. We will also cover over periodic billing for time and material based projects. Retainer-based projects, and generating your fixed amount over a period of time for those kind of projects. You'll have the ability to manually create your billing events from the billing generator, and that's going to be used to accommodate different billing types across your milestones on your project. And then lastly, we'll take a look at raising deposit invoices and switching to periodic time and materials for the remainder of the project. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this demo. All right, so the first thing you'll want to do when setting up your billing is navigate to your control pad and make sure the settings are set up properly. So this will be at the bottom of the control pad under billing event settings and PDF template settings. And the first setting that we have here is PDF generation. So this runs every 5 minutes, and that just lets the system generate your PDF after you've created your billing event. If you do not want to wait 5 minutes for your PDF to be generated, there is also a button on your billing event to create your PDF manually. And I'll show you that as we move on. The next setting would be your periodic billing. And this is going to You select a time that you would like to schedule the periodic billing process, and this process will run one time daily at the specified time here that you've selected. The next thing, and that's just going to automatically create your billing events for you. The next settings we have are the PDF template settings. So you can override your invoice template label and put whether it's a tax invoice or a credit note. You can choose your naming convention as you'd like. You can also enter your business registration number, and then also populating your logo for your invoices will be managed here. The logo, in order to add a file to these options here, you will need to navigate to Salesforce Classic. So Salesforce Classic can be found under your profile button here and under the options to switch to Salesforce Classic. You will then need to navigate to the Documents object to upload your image, and you'll be able to select it from here. If you have a logo that is wider, I recommend entering the width of the image here so that the full image is shown on your invoice. You also have your template footer notes, and then if you need to remove the Mission Control logo at the bottom of the invoice or credit note as well. All right. The next thing you'll want to have set up are your tax rates. So I have a few scenarios set up in regards to tax rates on your project. The first two tax rates that I have are your standard sales tax tax rates And the difference between the two that I have open will be that you can specify different currencies. So if you need to, or you have a default currency, but on certain projects, you need to switch the sales tax, or whatever reason, you can create a separate tax label. And I will also show you where to populate that on your project. So the first one that I have here is my US dollar tax label. I have my currency populated, currency code, as well as the currency symbol. And then you'll also want to specify your date format or your locale for any of the invoices that will be generated with this tax label. Notice that the month is capital M. That is used in Salesforce to specify months from minutes. So these same formats can be used to specify a time as well. So you want to make sure for your months you have a capital M in your format. We're not going to override the details for our invoice or our company details on the invoice for the standard sales tax. The information that is shown on your invoice for your business address and contact information, that will be populated within your Salesforce setup. So that, just going to navigate to that quickly. So in your company information, this is where you will populate your address and your business information for your invoice, okay? The next sales tax or tax rate record that I have is for the Australian dollar. So you can see I've created a different naming convention. I've added in the currency code, and currency symbol, specified my tax rate, and then you see that the date format for this one is a little bit different. So I would like the day to be displayed before the month and then the year on my invoices. And then again, no overrides because I want the standard business information to be pulled in. But in the event that you need to bill your customer on behalf of a different business entity, then you can also use the tax rate records to specify the difference. So if I wanted to bill my customer on behalf of Aprica instead of Mission Control, then I set up the tax rate with the required currency and date locale information. But I will actually want to override the company details so that I can invoice the customer on behalf of Aprica Business Solutions. I will then update the address and other information, and then I will need to populate a different logo for this invoice. So I went to the image in the documents folder in Salesforce Classic and selected the URL, the ID and the URL. So if you're ever viewing a record, the ID can be found directly within the URL. So that is what I have populated here. And we'll take a look at how that affects our invoice. There are overrides as well for the PDF template. So say, for instance, you use a different language, and instead of amount on the invoice, you want it to show amount in a different language. You can override your labels here or add in custom header fields and by their API name as well. So you can definitely override some of the fields that are available on your invoice. All right, so let's take a look at two different invoices, one for the one business entity. So this is just an invoice that's been created on one of my projects. But you can see our tax invoice label that we've populated in the control pad. This is the separate business entity. So you can see the date or their company information is for Aprica Business Solutions. I have my account and contact information, my invoice information, and so forth. So we'll view some other invoices once we get started on the projects. And then just switching over, we have the separate tax invoice for our default company information. So I could see that information from the company information is populated here. My account and contact information is pulled from a project or my billing event. and then the other details are populated as follows. I also want to note that I have a different image here. This is the image that I selected in the control pad, and this is the image that I've populated in that field on my tax rate. Okay, so that's another thing you'll want to have set up for your projects. Let's go ahead and dive in and start looking at a few different projects. So for this first project, we are going to manually create 2 billing events. One billing event is going to be a fixed amount, and the second billing event is going to include some approved time logs and expenses for this project. So let's take a look at our setup. I want to mark my project as a billing type. I have it as fixed price because I will be creating a fixed amount billing event. However, since you're manually creating your billing event, this billing type can be set to time and materials or fixed price. It doesn't matter for manual. Now, your billing rate, we are going to populate the billing rate for role-based, and that just means that the rate for my roles are going to be pulled from their role record. So any role that is assigned to the action, that is how the billable and cost values are going to be populated based on the billing rate and cost rate on the role record for this project. There's also an option to populate your billing rate and cost rate here on your project level. Then you'll set this to standard instead of role-based. You can also specify rates on your skill level or manage it manually through the manage rates button on your project. Okay. Next, we have our tax label established here. So we have our sales tax set to the Australian dollar. Our billing cycle is set to manual. And then we also have our payment terms. So that's going to allow the customer 14 days from the invoice date to receive payment. I've also marked to include my time log appendix and my expense appendix. You can also include your non-billable time if you would like, and that's just going to give a log of all of the related time logs and expenses on the invoice that we create. Okay, so let's go ahead and start creating our billing events. The first one I will do manually from the billing tab. So there's a few different places you can do so. The easiest place to create your billing event will be from the billing tab because it's already going to associate it to your project. You can also create your billing event from the billing event related list on your project, or by navigating to the billing event object within Salesforce and creating your record from here. Throughout this demonstration, I am only going to generate my billing events from the billing tab. So we will go ahead and create a naming convention. And this is going to be our fixed amount. We are going to set the type to invoice. So you can also create a credit note. But in this case, we are going to create invoices today. And then you have a couple of different status values here. So draft status means you're creating your billing event. You haven't necessarily sent it to your customer yet. Once you do send it to your customer, however, you will want to go in here and manually update it to issued. And that will update the status on your project that you've issued a invoice for a certain amount. And we'll take a look at that in the billing summary. And then you also have paid status. So once a billing event amount has been fully paid, then the status will update to paid automatically. Okay, so we're just going to put this in draft status, select our summary, fixed payment, our invoice date, and then that due date is going to be 14 days out. I'm not going to auto add any expenses or time logs, and I don't need to specify a tax rate because that's going to be populated already on my project, as well as the account and the contact. I've already populated that information on my project level. If you do populate a value here, it will override the account and contact that's on your project record. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this. Now notice we've created our billing event, but it doesn't have an amount on it yet. And that's because we need to create a line item or a billing event item. Okay, we can do that from the related list on our billing event or back on the billing tab on our project. Let's go ahead and just create one here. This is going to be a fixed amount. And you can create the naming conventions as required. I'm going to populate my amount and apply my tax. And just put in a description for my line item. I don't have any ledger codes that I have entered, but you do have the pick list that you can add your required values as well. All right, so I have my amount. Let's check out the details. We can see that this has been updated on my billing event, and it just rolls up as well as my tax rate information. That all comes and rolls up onto my billing event. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and create the time and materials billing event for this project, and then we'll take a look at the PDF for this. Or actually, I could just show you the PDF since it's going to look a little bit different from the PDF that has the time log. So again, since my 5 minutes haven't gone through to generate the PDF for me automatically, I will go ahead and push the generate PDF button. And now we have our tax invoice. So I have my default business information, my account and contact, and then we can see that fixed amount has been logged on our invoice for the 3,500. Our tax information is applied below. Okay, this PDF can also be downloaded and printed. You can also share a link for your PDF with your customer. So let's go back to our billing event. And once you generate your PDF from the view PDF button, that's how I got there, then you can also copy this URL and send it to your customer. They won't need to have access to Salesforce in order to view this link. And then they'll also be able to download and save the PDF from here as well. Okay. So let's go ahead back to our project and create our second billing event type. So the first one was for the fixed amount. This next one is going to be for all of the approved time logs and expenses that have not yet been invoiced on my project. So I've already created those records. I'm going to select new, create my naming convention. Select the type is this invoice. And my due date, summary for the invoice. And now this time I want to auto add my expenses and auto add my time logs. If you would like to only include time logs and expenses from a certain period on your project, you can enter a start and an end date. And then the rest of the details have been populated. Okay, just going to save this. And now we can see this invoice or this billing event has already, the amount is already populated in the tax amount. And this is going to roll up again from our billing event items. So in this case, our billing event items were created for us with the related time logs. You got your one line item for your time logs, and then you have your second one for your approved expenses on your project. All right, so let's take a look at that PDF and view the difference. All right, so we have our details as before, and now we have our individual line item for our time logs, another line item for our expenses, but we've also included the time log appendix and expense appendix. So you'll get a few details regarding what milestone and action it's relating to, the date, the resource that completed the time, the amount of hours, and the value of the hours that have been completed. And then again, for your expense summary, you get your expense details, what the expense was regarding, the date, any notes, and the amount claimed. All right, once you have your PDF generated, if you have the email activity on your billing event record page, which you can add, then you can also send an email template to your customer. So we've created a template for you called Billing Event Notification Client. You can insert this template into your email, add the details for your customer, which customer is going to, and then you'll see a few details regarding the invoice, as well as that link that the customer can click on to save and download and so on. So once you've sent that off to your customer, you can then go into your billing event and update that status to invoiced. Okay. All right, so we're not going to create a payment on this project, but we will create a payment as we go on, and we'll see how that affects our billing event. So moving forward to our next type, we are going to generate our billing events for milestone based on milestones. So this scenario is best for companies that would like to generate a fixed amount or a time log or time and materials invoice upon the completion of milestones. So I have one already created, and I'll tell you the difference between the two that I'm going to have on this project. But as I complete each milestone, an invoice is going to be generated for a certain amount. Okay, so for this particular method, you'll have your project details. You can either specify fixed price or time and materials, but we'll once we go to our milestones and see how those are set up, you'll see that even though my billing type is fixed price here, I can still have a time and material milestone on here. Okay, I have my billing rate pulled from my project level instead of role based. So I just specified a day rate and it automatically calculates the billable hourly rate based on the hours per day. I have my tax label applied here. So I have my sales tax set to US dollars and my billing cycle is set to milestone. So upon completion of milestones, payment terms are 14 days, and I'm going to include a time log and expense appendix. Now, let's take a look at our milestone setup. So I'm on the Create Milestones page, just so that I can see only my milestones for this project. I have Display Existing Milestones turned on so that I can see them. And so these are the existing ones that I have here. I already have one that's completed, and that's for the one that has already generated a billing event. For two of my milestones, I set my fixed amount in the milestone budget. If I wanted to, if I have my milestone budget as $3,500, but I don't want to invoice the entire $3,500 right now, I want to invoice a different amount, then I can populate the amount that I would like to invoice instead of the budget in the invoice amount field. You will need the invoice on completion checkbox marked true. So this will differentiate your milestones that will have a billing event created upon completion, or from other milestones you may just have on your project. And then you'll notice I also have this middle, this build milestone, which is complete, but my milestone budget is set to 0 and my invoice amount is set to 0. And that's going to make it a time and materials milestone. And what that means is, so on my build milestone, I've populated my actions, I've entered the amount of actions that I need to have for that milestone, and it rolls up the value for the scheduled hours to the hour scheduled value billable on my milestone. So this is the amount that's going to be pulled for my invoice instead of the milestone budget or the invoice amount here. So again, that's my milestone, and the hour scheduled value billable rolled up from my actions relating to that milestone. Okay. So let's leave this extra line and take a look at our billing events. So the existing billing event will be for that 15,000 for my time and material. I do get a billing event item for the milestone that's included in this. And again, you see the amount has been already populated for us from that milestone. Now we'll just need to mark this next milestone complete in order for it to generate the invoice for it. And I won't mark this on my milestone level because the status rolls up from its related actions. So instead, I'm going to go to the whiteboard. I already see that I have the 2 build actions complete. I only have one of my design actions complete. So I'm just going to pull over that last action for this milestone and mark it complete. And this is going to roll up to our milestone. So we can see the status has now updated to complete. And let's take a look at that billing event. All right, so our billing event has already been created. We have our billing event item or our line item that is set to the fixed amount here. And we're actually going to go ahead and make a payment on this project. So a few more ways to make payments. So you can do so directly from the screen by clicking on our billing event edit button and selecting new billing payment. You can also go into the billing event into that same related list and create your payment from there. So I'm going to create a naming convention, date paid, and the amount. You want to make sure if you're making a full payment that you include the tax in that amount field, the method of payment, and any reference numbers. All right, so now my payment is made for the full amount relating to our billing event. You can see that the status for our billing event has updated to paid, and then the amount paid has also been updated. All right. And then just going back to our project and taking a look at the billing summary, we now have 3,500 invoiced to our customer. That means we've sent it to our customer. Our other one is still in draft status, so it hasn't been invoiced yet. We have the amount remaining based on our project budget versus the amount that's been invoiced or paid. And then our outstanding amount is for the drafted billing event that has not made it. We don't have a payment against. So let's take a look at that PDF. What happens when we generate a payment? Let's generate a new invoice and see how that has affected our invoice. So again, we have our same company information, account and contact, our line items, but we also show that the amount paid has been specified on our invoice, and that shows the customer that they have a balance due of $0. Okay. Now let's go ahead and take a look at another method. So that would be all for our milestone method to invoice upon completion. Let's take a look at periodic billing. So again, for this one, I need to make sure the periodic billing setting is activated in the control pad and specify a time. Since I needed the billing event to already be created, I've selected a past date on my project, so we'll already have an invoice created. I have my project set to time and materials. This is the only billing type that you can use with periodic billing, as well as deposit in time and materials, but we'll get to that in a second. So time and materials, our billing rate is pulled from our roll records or our resources. Our tax label will be our sales tax Australian dollar. And then the billing cycle is set to periodic. Well, let's take a look at the options available for our periodic billing frequency. You can have this set to weekly. So if you have it set to weekly, it's going to be whatever day of the week that you select. So if I put my first billing date for this Friday, then next Friday it's going to generate another billing event, and the next Friday after that, and so forth. Fortnightly means every 2 weeks on the day that you specify, the 1st and the 16th. And just a note for this 1st and 16th, this is going to include time logs up until the previous day. So on the 1st, when a billing event is created, it's going to include time log and expenses up until the 30th or the 31st of the previous month. And then on the 16th, that billing event is going to include time logs up until the 15th of the month. Okay. Next option we have is for weekly. So in 4 weeks, on Friday, I want another billing event to be created. So it's going to be based on the day of the week that you select. If you select monthly, it's going to occur on the date of the month. So for example, I might want to invoice the 21st of each month. So that would be monthly. And then quarterly will be every 3 months. So whatever date that you select, and then 3 months out from that date. You will need to specify your payment terms, because that's going to populate your due date on your invoice, and select your billing next date. So because this process has already run, which it's run on the 9th of December, then it's automatically updated the last date, and it's populated the new next date for me. So once you set your periodic next date and your invoices start being created, you won't need to update this here. It's just going to keep updating the last and the next date. I'm going to include my time log appendix and my expense appendix. And let's take a look at that billing event. So let's go to the billing tab. And then again, on the 9th of December, you can see this invoice was already created for me. And it included the time logs up until the 9th of December, and the expenses automatically populates the amounts for me, and associates it to the billing event. Okay, I'm going to take a look at the PDF for this one, as it'll be the same as the other ones, including your line items and appendix attached to your invoice as well. Okay. Next scenario we're going to go over is retainer based. So this will be used for a company that might have a support contract with their customer, or for whatever reason, they are going to be invoicing a fixed amount over a certain time period, regardless of how much work is completed against the project. So even if you set a budget of 2,000 hours or 2,000 billable value hours to be logged against the project in 1 week, if your resources go over that amount, the invoice will still be for the fixed amount. So on this retainer-based project, I have my billing type set to fixed price. I'm going to be pulling my rates from my roll records again. And I have my tax label, and my billing cycle is set to retainer. I set the frequency that I would like those invoices to be created, my payment terms for my due date, and then I specify a retainer amount. Now, in addition to specifying your retainer amount, you'll also need to populate your billing next date to create your first billing event, and then the dates will update from there. So I've already created mine. It's generated a few. Okay, for this one, I am not going to include a time log and expense appendix. Okay. Let's take a look at our billing tab. We have a few retainer invoices that have already been created. One is in draft status, so it's just created. I haven't sent it to my customer. We see that amount is set to 2,000. And then on our other invoice that's been issued to our customer, again, same amount, same tax, and further information. So I can see that my amount outstanding have not been, or my invoices have not been paid, so it's outstanding at $4,000. However, I have issued one of my invoices to the customer, so only 2,000 of that has been invoiced. Okay. And then on our line item, or I'm sorry, on our invoice, is going to show our line item according to this name that's been populated here, and then the amount. All right. The next method that we have available is by the billing generator. So this is on a milestone basis, but this will allow you to select different billing types for your milestone. So I can have a fixed price milestone, I can have a fixed price plus expenses milestone, and I can even have a time and materials milestone all in the same project. And then I can generate my invoices and select different information for those milestones all at one time. So we'll take a look at that. So our project's billing type is set to controlled on milestones. So that's going to be a little bit different than our milestone billing type. So our billing types will be specified on our milestone records. I have my billing rate and cost rate established, my tax label, and then my billing cycle is set to manual because we're going to manually be creating our billing event with the generator. Our periodic billing frequency, this doesn't need to be populated for this project since we're going to manually be creating our invoices here. All right. Oh, so let's take a look at those milestones first before we create our billing event. I have 3 different types here. So I have my billing milestone budget set for our fixed price milestones. And then similar to that other project where I want one of the milestones to be time and materials, I'll just set that in my billings type on my milestone level. And then I have the amounts that I want for my milestones. You don't have to invoice for the full amount here. And I'll show you how to generate those invoices for a different amount. Notice on this project, we don't need invoice on completion to be marked true because again, we're going to be making those billing events ourselves. So that is our milestone setup. And on our billing tab, we have a new button. So because this is controlled on milestone, we have a generate button. Instead of selecting new, in this case, we are going to select generate. All right, so similar to creating a different billing event, you're going to populate your billing event information. I will select an invoice type. I'm going to set the status to draft. Turn the summary. The invoice date. And due date. And then notice this billing event has auto add expenses. So I've created a expense for my project record and I haven't related it to any of my milestones. It's just related on my project level. I want to include that in my invoice, even though it's not related to my milestones. So I have that button there. And then if I enter a start or end date, start and end date, then it's going to include any expenses within that time frame that are approved. All right, so we have our different milestones here. We have our fixed price plus expenses milestone. So any expenses that are relating to this milestone will be included in the invoice, and those are separate from our project expenses. I have my milestone budget, and instead of invoicing the full amount, I think I'm just going to invoice 25% of my milestone budget. Okay, so that's going to automatically populate the amount for me. And then moving on to our time and materials milestone, I am going to auto add any time logs or expenses that relate to this time and materials milestone. So that's 3 places that I have my expenses added on my invoice. That's on my time and material milestone, my fixed price plus expenses milestone, and then I've also added any expenses that are relating to my project. Okay, and then just like before, you can select your start and end date if you only want certain time logs and expenses to be included. And then for our last fixed price line, I can either enter a percent to bill, or I can manually select the amount that I would like to bill. Okay, so that's already populating our amounts for our time here. This is not going to include our time logs and expenses. So let's go ahead and generate that invoice. You can see the amount updated to now include our time log and expenses. And let's take a look at our line items. So on this one, I have my first line item for my expenses relating to my project. I next have the design milestone amount. So that's that 25% of the 3,500 that I wanted to invoice. The next line item is for my deliver milestone, and that was for the 2,000 that I manually entered. I also have the expenses for my fixed price plus expenses milestone. Notice it is a separate line item. So I have my one line item for the fixed amount, and then my second line item for my expenses. And then lastly, for my build milestone, I have a separate line item for my expenses in the time logs that were approved within this time period for my billing event. Okay, I'll also show you what this looks like when you navigate to the PDF. So let's go into our billing event and view the PDF. All right, so right now I am viewing a summary PDF. I just generated the PDF, and summary is the default button that you can view for your tax invoice. But for the billing event generator, you can also view a detailed invoice. So this right now, we're viewing the summary invoice, just going to summarize all of the information that we've populated on our billing event. We get our line items here and then the amounts just as before. But let's change this over to the detailed view and see how that affects our invoice. This field is on our billing event under invoice template, and we're going to select the detailed template. Okay. Oops, that's the wrong button. All right, so let's view that PDF. All right, so you can already see we have way more details regarding our line items, as well as the amount already invoiced, the initial budget, so that the customer can see we only invoiced 25% of that budget. And then on our deliver, we only selected $2,000 from the initial budget amount. We also get a breakdown of what's remaining for those milestones. And then if I had my time log and appendices, time log and expense appendixes turned on, I will also get a breakdown of those hours for those time logs. And then further details on those records as well. All right. So that is our billing event generator. All right, so our last method to invoice will be for deposit to T&M. So that's going to be our last type here. And this one is going to be used if a business wants to run a time and materials project, but the customer needs to pay an initial deposit amount. Once that deposit has been accounted for with the different time logs, then the project will automatically switch over to a periodic time and materials project. So to set this method up, I have my project billing type set to deposit to T&M. I have my billing rate, my cost rate populated, and then my tax label. My billing cycle is set to periodic for the time and materials after the deposit. I'm going to select a frequency. I have it set to monthly, my payment terms, and then again, my periodic billing next date. I did allow this process to run so that we have a billing event to take a look at. And then I'm going to include the time log and expense index. So let's take a look at those billing events. So for my initial deposit billing event, I am going to open this up because there is a difference. So we manually create the deposit. And when you create your deposit billing event, you'll want to make sure the deposit field is marked true. This is going to be a little bit different from a fixed amount billing event because we still want the related time logs to account for the amount for the deposit. So I have my deposit set to 3,500 and my time logs will either be related to this deposit up until it meets the 3,500 amount. And then the remaining time logs will go to our time and materials billing event. Okay, so again, key thing to notice here is you'll want to mark deposit true on your billing event. This billing event needs to be created manually first. All right, I did have a payment on this project. So I have my line item for the fixed amount. And then the customer has paid the full amount of that deposit. So let's take a look at the next billing event, that time and materials billing event. All right, so for that time and materials billing event, I get my line items for my time logs. I didn't have any expenses on this project, so it wasn't included in that billing event. But in the event that you do, it would be included. I show the amounts for those time logs and the amount due. Now, there is, in the event that you have, or when your time logs start being associated to your deposit, it'll need to only meet the amount of the deposit. So I only wanted time logs up until $3,500 to be associated to my deposit billing event. So right now I'm just looking at the time logs that I have created on this project, and so we can see where they've been split. I have 3 of those time logs that amounted to $3,500. But take a look at this last time log. It only shows 7.33 hours on December 1st for Chris. Well, once it meets the 3,500, that time log is then split into a second time log so that the remaining time and values can be associated to our time log billing event that's created. So it will automatically split those time logs for you. Okay. And let's take a look at that, that PDF. And this one is for our tax. Our tax label was set to override for our separate business entity. So you see our different business information and so forth. And then you get your just one line item for your time logs. and a breakdown of the logs that have been included. Okay. All right, so that will cover the various methods to create your invoices. We will move over and get into our question section of the webinar. I do have one question already in the Q&A, but please feel free to add any questions that you might have as I go through this scenario. So first question says, I noticed the billing event for periodic invoices gets created automatically once per billing frequency. This picks up all hours completed against the project during that time period. So instead of all hours completed against the time period, it's only going to pick up all of the time logs that have been approved before the billing next date. So they have to all be logged in approval status, and then have the hours completed amount populated there. Question is there a solution to edit these line items before the invoice goes out? Specifically, if a customer did not populate their hours in time for the periodic billing to run, can they update their hours, then rerun the process that will change the existing billing event? Great question, James. So I will navigate back to our project for the periodic and just go to the billing event. So in the event that you have a time log that needs to be modified after, you can update the time log within the related list and then generate, within your billing event related list and then generate your PDF again. Or if you have a time log that is new and not included. So I'm just going to create one really quick. Need European 0052. I'm going to select the date before the 8th. That's when my process ran. But since we're creating this manually, it can be for whatever date. We're going to say that we've completed, this is for our certain project member, and we've completed 3 hours. And then our approval status. So I should have this project set to not require approval, but we'll see once this finishes. And we'll go ahead and save this. The approval date stamp will be from today, since I've just created this. But in order to associate it to our billing event, we'll need to mark it invoiced, and then we'll need to search for our billing event item. So let me just get that billing event item name really quick. So our billing event item name is time logs 2912. All right, so we have our billing event item. We marked it invoiced, and we're going to save. And then go ahead and navigate back to our project. So this is the amount before. Let's refresh. Go ahead to our billing tab. And we can see that the amount has now been updated on our billing event. So that's how you'll manually associate your time logs. You can do the same for the expense records by manually populating the invoiced and billing event field. So this is marked true, and it's associated to the correct billing event. Okay. Does that answer your question, James? All right. Were there any other questions regarding the billing events or generating your invoices for your customer? All right, I don't have any other questions in our chat box, so I thank everyone for joining in. Please feel free to get in touch if you have any additional questions. That those can be submitted by email at support@aprika.com or from our website. Here's a few links to our user guide and training videos, as well as our knowledge base, where more information on the certain billing types can be found. We also have a learning portal and link to our chatter. All right, thank you everyone for joining in, and we hope to see you next month for our next billing, or I'm sorry, our next Campfire